is the fifth episode of the archival series, Indian Mathematicians at Work. Today, I will be talking to Balu, or Professor R. Balasubramanian, about his work and life over the last 5 decades, together with my colleague, Professor Surya Ramana from the Harish Chandra Research Institute.
Professor Balasubramanian is one of the most distinguished analytic number theorists of India in the tradition of K. Ramachandra and Ramanujan himself before that. His work spanning nearly 50 years now involves a fascinating mix of analysis, complex analysis and combinatorics at the same time. I met him as an 18-year-old, just about after school, and I was thereafter a PhD student of his from 94 to 2000.
Although I have known Balu for over 3 decades, my association with him has become somewhat closer after he moved to IIT Bombay for 2 or 3 years in the period 2017 to 2020. Prior to that, he was the director of the Institute of Mathematical Sciences in Chennai for 14 years. Balu's long and illustrious career has inspired several younger mathematicians. Balu has had 14 doctoral students and has also collaborated with a very large number of mathematicians, both from India and abroad, and his research has inspired a large number of younger mathematicians to work in both combinatorics and number theory.
Unique thing with Professor Balasubramanian is his extraordinary ability to simplify very complex arguments and present them with absolute lucidity. We hope through this interview to bring out various facts about Balu's life, as Professor Balasubramanian is known, in his own words. So let's start with the beginnings. So where were you born? When were you born? And your family background in your childhood?
I was born on 15th March 1951 in Kumbakonam, rather close to Kumbakonam. My father had earlier worked in the army during the Second World War time, and afterwards he came and then joined a sugar factory. My mother was an elementary school teacher, and being an elementary school teacher, she was liable to be transferred every 3 or 4 years. But fortunately, all those transfers took place in and around Vadapathimangalam, and therefore I had all my education there, both my elementary school and high school. And then we moved to a place called Mangalam, which was very near a college called Sri Prof College, where myself and my brothers joined. That's more or less there.
So you were born in Tanjavur district in Tamil Nadu?
Yes.
In Kumbakonam?
Yes.
Close to Kumbakonam? Okay, so Kumbakonam is of course a very famous town in Tamil Nadu. It's known for its temples.
Exactly.
And also Srinivasa Ramanujan was in Kumbakonam.
Yes.
So
yeah, Kumbakonam is the temple town of Tanjore.
Yeah.
And they have, in and around Kumbakonam, they have even temples separately for each of the Navagrahas.
Okay. So Srinivasa Ramanujan's home, which is also there. And
Yes.
Did you know of it as a child?
No, I didn't have much an idea.
You didn't have much of an idea. So Vadapathimangalam is how far from Kumbakonam?
Vadapathimangalam is maybe around 50-60 kilometers.
Okay. And you were born on the 15th of March.
15th of March.
Did that come in the way of celebrating your birthday? Because it be usually board exam time. Was it the case in your childhood?
It's a Nights of March,
Yeah, that is true. But were exams even then held around the 15th of March or so?
Yeah, but the exam would be probably in the starting around the 15th of March and go up to the
Okay. So 1951, and your mother was an elementary school teacher, and she was having a transferable government job.
Yes.
But always in Tanjavur.
Always in Tanjavur district. Yeah, those times, I mean, the transfers won't take place from district to district.
I see.
It will be always within the district.
I see. And your father worked in a sugar factory. He was on the mechanical side.
Mechanical side.
So before that, your father had worked in the British Indian Army
Yes.
in Burma.
Burma.
Okay, and he was on the administrative side.
Administrative level. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, he was always lamenting the fact that he was not in the field, and he would have very much liked it to be in the field.
Okay. And your siblings, brothers, sisters,
Oh,
how many of them?
Yeah, I have an elder brother and an younger brother. And my younger brother is no more, but my elder brother is around.
Okay. So three of you.
Three of us.
So you say you were.
And therefore, I don't have any sister or.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in Vadapathimangalam till your elder brother got into college.
Yes, exactly. You see, the point is, all the three of us have essentially 2-year age difference.
Mm-hmm.
And all the three have to go to the college. And my mother, taking the financial situation into account, felt definitely that it would be better that if they are day scholars rather than in a hostel, which would have been a little strain on the budget.
Okay.
And therefore she got transferred to, she requested a transfer to a place close to a nearby college. And one of the best colleges at that time in Tanjavur district was Sri Pushpam College. And therefore we got transferred to a place close to the Sri Pushpam College, essentially at the time when my elder brother has to go to the college.
I see.
Any favorite subjects in school or any?
Somehow all the subjects were my favorites, and mathematics a little more, and Tamil literature also. And I do have a feeling that your interest in a subject is probably the way your teachers teach. And at this time when I was in high school, etc., the teachers were really very much conscious of their duties, and they made the subject very interesting to the students. And that really helped me to really like all the subjects.
Any particular teachers you have in mind? Or
Yeah, I mean, of course, in my high school, there was also Padmanabhan, who was my mathematics teacher, and Bhagyaswamy, who was in history, and so on and so forth. Yes.
You had many good teachers,
Yes.
and you were generally interested in all subjects.
Generally interested in all subjects, and mathematics and Tamil literature a little more.
So you grew up to let's say 15, because when you say college, you mean pre-university.
Pre-university, yeah. Those times, I mean, it was up to 11th, it would be in the high school, and then 1 year pre-university and 3-year BSc. I mean, that was the thing. Okay. And
so around,
and the pre-university would be in the college.
So up to the age of 16, you were in around Vadapathimangalam.
Exactly.
Then you went to Pushpam College.
Yes.
Where is Pushpam College exactly located? The one in Tanjavur.
Okay, this is essentially from Tanjavur-Nagapattinam line.
Okay.
The railway line, and maybe around 10 kilometers from Tanjavur.
Okay, so it's basically Tanjavur is what
it's basically Tanjavur.
And it's a college that is still
it is still functioning, and I do understand that college is still rated rather high.
Okay. So that's where you went to study.
Yeah.
So in school, how was your performance?
I mean, one of the students who would take some high marks, and nothing more than that. I mean, it's not that I was interested in some subject where I would go out of the syllabus and try to read or anything like that. I don't think I ever did it. In fact, I should probably say that all the time I was in a village, and it didn't even occur to my neighbors that one should read something outside the own syllabus, etc., etc. And therefore, I was not aware of any such a thing. I mean, the whole idea was to study whatever that is, syllabus was.
But did your parents, your mother was a teacher, did they ask you to get high marks?
Yeah, high marks. That's the only thing they want.
That was a requirement.
I mean, it's not that they want me to read more than that and things like that. Nothing. Just high marks. And in fact, my father would be happy if I get high marks in mathematics and English. And he didn't even bother to know what marks I am getting in the other subjects.
I see. So math and English, that was the push from father's side.
Yes.
And your mother?
Mother has no such a serious feeling about anything.
Oh, okay. Though she was the teacher.
She was the teacher.
So how would, I mean, do you have any memories of your childhood up to going to college? Or it was just...
It's just as usual. I mean, there's nothing very positive or very negative which I would remember.
Okay. So things went on
Things
fine,
went on smoothly,
happily,
yes.
till you reached college. So this was after pre-university. I mean, this was the pre-university.
After high school.
After high school.
Yes.
So at that time, you had some sort of board exam or something?
Yes, those times it was a board exam.
At 11th, what is nowadays 11th?
And, I was sort of 1 year younger to take the board exam, and I had to get a special permission for it. And then I could not join the college for 1 year type thing.
Oh.
And then we finally...
And in college, so you went with your marks, I suppose?
Yes.
And then you met the principal? Or
Yeah,
how did you get allotted to
Yes,
mathematics?
I met the principal. You see, at that particular time, I mean, that IITs, etc., again, were not that famous. I am talking about 65. And people had some idea about some subjects better for the job market and so on and so forth. And I didn't even know how they got those ideas. And in that, the chemistry was the leading one. At least at that time, I mean, the people who had higher marks would probably go for chemistry. And I had some good marks. And therefore, I went there, and the principal said that, what do you want to take? And I said that actually I am debating between mathematics and literature, and I think probably I will choose the mathematics. He said, but you have high marks, why not you choose chemistry? I said, nothing doing, I will better stick to mathematics.
Since you mentioned Tamil literature, where did that interest come from?
I don't know, I think again probably, as I said, maybe by the good teaching. I mean, the teachers, when they teach the old classical poems, etc., would really enjoy it and say, and would explain the beauty of it. And then you always feel that, okay, let's see what exactly is going on. And that's how I got my...
And how about your siblings? Did they influence you in...
Well, my brother influenced me, elder brother influenced me a lot. I mean, he was interested in the English literature. And he influenced really. I mean, he has been very helpful in bringing me up.
So you are saying that when you went to meet the principal of Sri Pushpam College for your admission, he offered you chemistry.
Chemistry.
But you were either going to do literature or math.
Maths. And maths a little more than literature.
Maths a little more.
Again, for the same reason, I mean, one was told that if not chemistry, at least the math would put you in the job market better than the literature.
Yeah, but you could have equally well done Tamil literature.
Equally well done Tamil literature.
So that's interesting to know. So you joined BSc Mathematics,
yes.
Of course, after you finished your pre-university. And BSc Mathematics, how was it in Pushpam College? Do you remember much?
Okay, it was, one should say, probably above average of what was happening in the other colleges, but would not rate some more better than 80% type thing. I mean, I would probably give some 65 to 70 marks of the teaching in the BSc level. It's a good college, but cannot be considered, at least at the time, as one of the top colleges.
So you were, of course, exposed to physics and chemistry as
I mean,
special
because at that
subjects.
time, of course, when you do mathematics, I mean, at least at the time, then you study the two ancillaries, physics and chemistry, as well as the Tamil and English literature for the first 2 years as an ancillary subjects, and only in third year you do only mathematics.
So is it? I mean, did you find physics or chemistry as
Well, the
subject?
physics and chemistry, the theory part was interesting. I really enjoyed, but I don't think I enjoyed the laboratory that much.
Okay.
It's not something which I didn't have much pleasant memories of going and doing an experiment and getting the correct result and doing it, etc. You know what the result should come, and somehow you manipulate so that you will write the result down.
So your lab work was like all of us. So I was just wondering, since your mathematics has been very much around mix of combinatorics and analysis, is analytic and combinatorial tools. Did you feel? I mean, you were surely in BSc introduced to some combinatorics at least. So did you find any inclination towards these sort of topics?
Yeah, somehow I did really find the combinatorics to be more interesting.
So that was some sort of a starting point. But you didn't, of course, realize that you would make.
Yeah, okay, because again I told you in my village, I mean, the concept of taking research as a career
No, that
was not there at all.
No.
I mean, nobody knew that it's what everybody thought was you take good marks, take some competitive examinations, and become one of the administrators. I mean, that's essentially the aim. The civil service was the highest aim of the people. And when I was doing BSc, that was also my aim, because that's what everybody was feeling. And it's only later I came to know that because of the reasons which I will explain later, that okay, the research also can be a career for this.
So your BSc got done in Pushpam College.
Yes.
And after that you did an MSc.
It so happened, actually, when I joined the Pushpam College, there was no MSc at all in the Pushpam College. But in these 4 years, Pushpam College introduced the MSc.
Okay.
And it so happened one Professor V. Krishnamurthy, who was in Loyola College
In Chennai.
He moved as the head of the department. And that, I think, was one of the lucky breaks for me, because otherwise I would not have known many things if the Krishnamurthy were not there. And then I did my MSc also in Pushpam College.
So I mean, while you were doing your BSc, they started an MSc program.
Yes.
And Professor Krishnamurthy, who was teaching in Loyola College,
He was
or he
teaching
was
in
a
Loyola
student?
College. No, he was teaching in Loyola College.
He was teaching in Loyola College, and he moved as head of the department to Pushpam College.
Yes.
I see. And that helped you.
That helped me.
Because
that helped me a lot, because you see, that is the time essentially the TIFR was growing. And the Loyola College had a great person by name Father Resin, who knew what research was, and he was able to send students to Tata Institute. And Krishnamurthy was there around, seeing all those things, and therefore he was aware of the good research and the good research institutes and so on and so forth. And therefore, when he came to Pushpam College, I mean, and he was a very good teacher, and he really enthused the mathematics in the students.
So what courses in MSc would he have taught you?
Analysis.
Okay.
So that turned out to be very useful. I mean,
was he an analyst?
He was an
such?
analyst, yes.
Okay, interest in analysis, and he taught you analysis, and so your course, which still, of course, you have always been very impressive at, the use of analysis in number theory. That has been. So would you say?
I learned all my analysis there. Yes.
So estimations and...
Yes, particularly estimation about which I can even make a comment a little later.
So, under Professor Krishnamurthy's influence, you feel that your mathematical...
Yeah, that is the time that is the one which essentially made me saying that, okay, one should not only read the syllabus. I mean, he rather showed how beautiful mathematics was, and therefore I went to the library and read many more books to understand the mathematics.
So this was all possible in Pushpam College?
It was all. They had a good library.
Were there any other students around you who were interested in mathematics or during your MSc? Or
I mean, there are at least 4 or 5 people who were interested. Yeah, but I can't exactly remember their name. Yeah.
So then, of course, MSc was a 2-year program, I suppose.
2-year program.
So that probably got over pretty quickly.
1972, yeah.
1970. So, and then you went to TAFR.
Yes.
So how did that happen? From Pushpam College, Tanjavur to TAFR is a big jump in those days.
Exactly.
Nowadays, maybe it's still possible.
It's a big jump. In fact, as I told you, till the time I have not even moved out of Tanjavur district, except occasionally visiting my father, who later moved to a sugar factory in Trichy. And therefore, the Tanjavur and Trichy were the total 2 districts which I have really travelled during my high school and college days. And you see, even though he infused mathematics, etc., still I didn't have a good idea about what research is. And at least, definitely, I never heard about Tata Institute or any such thing. And then, after I finished, when I was waiting for my exam results, Krishnamurthy saw the advertisement from Tata Institute. He was living in Tanjavur and I was living in a place called Vadapathimangalam, which is around 12 kilometers. And he saw the advertisement in the Hindu, and he was pretty sure that I would not have seen that advertisement at all, and I would not have even if I had seen the advertisement, I would not have known what Tata Institute is. But since he came from Loyola College, which has sent many people to Tata Institute, he was well aware of it. And therefore, then he came to my house together with the newspaper, and that is the time when I was playing cards with my family members. And then he told me, okay, this is an advertisement which has come, and why not you apply? And he said that he will give me a good recover. And then I applied, and then had an interview in Tata Institute, and that's how I joined.
Playing cards. So you have always played cards. You are an avid bridge player.
Yeah, bridge I learned a little later. Not at that time. At that time it was the other card games like 504 or Rummy or something like that.
Okay. So, but you played bridge for a very long time.
I played bridge for a very long time.
Even at almost professional level.
Yeah, will not say professional level, but I have played in tournaments. And more or less till I became the director in 2000. Till the time, of course, I used to regularly play bridge. Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
The director of IMS.
Yeah, I know. Very often in the evenings, you would stop discussing things and say you have to be off to play bridge. So you got to TFR, you went, meaning as in you were called for the interview.
I was called for the interview, yeah.
And you went from Tanjavur to Bombay. That must have been already quite a journey for you.
Quite a journey, exactly.
Because you were never out of...
Yeah, no, actually, this is okay. Slight thing which I was mistaken. There was a summer workshop in BITS Pilani the previous year, and then Krishnamurthy wrote to them that he is sending one of the students, and they invited him. Again, I didn't even know that there's a BITS Pilani, and I didn't even know that only one has to apply for that, etc. But everything he did. And therefore, I spent a month in BITS Pilani in 1971 as a summer student. And that's why my first trip abroad. Okay.
But Pilani is very far from Tanjavur.
Very far.
How did you do the trip?
You see, meantime, my brother had already got a job as a lecturer in the government polytechnic in Chennai.
Yeah.
And therefore, he was there in Chennai. Therefore, I had a placed thing and somebody to book the ticket and do various things. And therefore, I just landed in Chennai and then he took care of the rest.
Okay. So he put you on a train.
He put me on the train.
There was a direct train to Pilani?
No, when I had to go to Delhi and then take a bus.
So you did all that without knowing Hindi. Your Hindi is still little questionable only. So you managed it. You reached Pilani, spent a month.
Spent a month there.
Okay. And
therefore,
so
that experience helped and it's everything. Because in Bombay also, of course, you go up to VT station and then you have to find out a way of going to TIFR.
So did you have anybody to keep you company on such journey? No, nothing. You went by yourself and reached TIFR.
The people you met at Pilani, the fellow students, did you happen to meet them again later? Or
yeah, Narasimha Shastri was one whom I do remember.
Oh, he was in that workshop summer program in Pilani. I see. So you reached Bombay for the interview.
For the interview.
And how did the interview go? That already seeing TIFR is a totally different world.
Totally different world. And I don't know, at least at the end of the interview, I was not terribly happy. And I thought I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there was a little problem. You see, till 1972 when I was doing in Madras University, the Madras University has not changed the syllabus at all. They decided to change the syllabus only in 1973. Therefore, essentially, the syllabus was only the classical areas and no modern areas. And that makes one somewhat difficult to face a TIFR interview when they get students pan-India who have probably undergone some modern mathematics, training in modern mathematics.
So the other people who attended your interview at the same time would have been, for example?
I don't know who are all attended the interview, but at least the people who are my batchmates, that I would be able to say. Yeah, it is Madhav Nori, Adimurthy, Mohan Kumar.
Oh, okay. So all of them stalwarts in their respective fields. So
yes, it's one of the nice things. Yes.
Fairly unusual to have 4 students of the same batch go on to have successful mathematical careers.
Yes.
Do you remember who the interviewers were, who was on the panel?
I remember Professor B.V. Limaye was there.
Because he was in IIT for a very long time after that.
Yes. And that is essentially because he asked me a question for which I didn't have I thought I should be able to find out a solution and I never did. And therefore, I just remember that very much.
I see. What, do you even remember the question?
Yes, I do remember the question. He asked me that if you have a group G and it has only finitely many subgroups, is the group G necessarily finite?
So group theory or familiarity with working with groups?
Okay, essentially at that time, the definition of group was given and nothing more than that.
Okay.
I mean, there was a syllabus.
So something...
Since I knew the definition, I thought I should be able to manage. But the definition is by itself was not sufficient to...
So even when you finished MSc, you mean things like nowadays students do, like, let's say, Herstein or something like this?
No,
there was no question of familiarity with
that.
So therefore, this TIFR interview would have certainly been a little bit...
a little bit,
difficult.
Yeah.
Typically, they ask you what you would like to be interviewed on?
Exactly. I mean, therefore, some of the questions, whatever that was within the syllabus type thing, I was able to answer well. Because that way, I think Krishnamurthy trained us well. Okay. But things which will go a little beyond the syllabus, which was not there, but probably which was in the syllabus in many other universities at that time. There I had a...
So, abstract algebra, for example.
Abstract algebra, nothing.
But what were the topics that you were confident in?
Essentially analysis and some algebra.
And they asked you, naturally, they asked you...
Naturally asked me those questions.
In analysis. Do you remember anything? It's too long. Okay.
Too long.
Yeah. I suppose. So, Professor B.V. Limay was in the interview panel. And any of the TFR people who were there? You don't
can't
remember?
Yes.
Okay. So that was your TFR interview and you didn't expect to hear from them after?
I didn't expect to hear from them exactly. And therefore it was somewhat a pleasant surprise.
I see.
That when I received the interview, the order.
Okay. So you got a letter
Yes.
asking you to
Come and
join
before this
TFR as
particular
what?
day.
Because you are not even familiar with the gradings or whatever
Nothing.
it is.
It was, no.
Research assistant, visiting member.
Yes.
There was also a research associate position, was that?
That's later.
Later.
I thought, yeah. Exactly, I can't exactly remember. Yeah.
Research, something of that sort.
Yes.
Research associate. But did you have any idea of what duties it entailed?
No idea.
And what was your conception of what it might have been? Once you got the letter, people would have asked you.
Exactly. I didn't know what the job is all about and I didn't know what I am supposed to do, etc. But Krishnamurthy told us that it would be good for you. You go and join now that you got that opportunity. And then I thought, okay, it's a good idea. And then I went and joined.
So did you think that you will have to assist some professor in his work or something like that? No, you had
absolutely no clue
I see.
what I am supposed to do.
What was the reaction of your immediate family to?
You're going.
They were all happy
because
since the professor said that it's a nice golden opportunity. Beyond that, they could not think much. Because nobody had really an idea about what research is.
So you decided to go to Bombay.
Yes.
Okay, and you were there in 1972. Roughly, what time did they admit students at that?
August. Around August. And they gave me a date, I think. Please come and join before this particular date.
Okay, so around August of 1972.
Yes.
And roughly, how old were you then? So
21.
Yeah. So you were in TFR and your mathematical innings started.
Yes.
So the first year courses, now that would have also been quite a culture difference.
Quite difficult, yes. Because since I didn't come up with that background.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little difficult, the first one.
Do you remember any of your teachers from then?
Of course, Professor Raghunathan and Professor Ramana.
Okay.
Yeah, Ramana did topology and Raghunathan did analysis. And who did algebra? I cannot exactly.
So, of course, TFR has this interview at the end of first year. So, after the first year courses, you were interviewed for extension.
Again, I don't think, at least to my satisfaction, I did well. Because, I had little difficulties because the courses were essentially new for me.
So, this is 1973 and maybe June-ish, you had this interview.
Yes.
And this was for extension of fellowship or something of this sort.
Yes.
So, who interviewed you? Do you remember?
Not exactly.
I see. Because for many PhD students, this is one of the landmark things, right? This interview.
What is it called? The thing at the end of first year. Yeah.
Okay. So, but then you became a student of Ramachandra's very quickly because by 1974 or so you have a paper.
Yeah, exactly. I decided to join Ramachandra.
Okay. And how did that happen?
Yeah, I decided to do number theory because the analysis, the number theory part was interesting to me. And then I decided to go and talk to Ramachandra and whether he would take me as a student. And the previous night I was talking to my friends in the hostel and they asked me, do you have, since you want to go and work in number theory, do you have an idea about quadratic reciprocity law? And that is a word which I had never heard in my life before because it was not in the syllabus there. And my first year course also, there was no number theory, it was algebra, analysis and topology. But anyway, the next day I went there and said that we want to join you as a PhD students. And he said, would you be able to do this convergence divergence and the estimate, a good estimate for series which are convergent? And since that was something which I knew very well, I said, okay, that I can say easily do. That's no problem. And then he was thinking for the second question. And before that, I thought I would say that, but on the other hand, I don't really know what are these quadratic reciprocity, etc. Said, oh, you don't know quadratic reciprocity law? Fine, you are my student. Okay, let's start working. And that's how I became a student.
So your lack of knowledge impressed him.
Lack of knowledge.
So he at that time, in 1972, what were Ramachandra's interests like?
Okay, that is something very interesting. You see, when he joined, with the Tata Institute, after 2-3 years, etc., his interest was essentially in algebraic number theory, mainly motivated by a course which was given by C.L. Siegel. And then his research came essentially out of that, and the Kanakanahalli limit formulas, the construction of units, and so on and so forth. And after that, he sort of moved to the Baker's theory of linear forms and logarithms. That is the time when the Baker proved his great theorem on the linear forms and logarithms. And Ramachandra did some great work there, both theoretically and arithmetic applications. For example, theoretically, one should say that his 6 exponential theorem, for example, and also improving the lower bounds of the linear forms, beta 1 log alpha 1 plus beta 2 log alpha 2 plus beta n log alpha n. And then he had many interesting arithmetic applications of the Baker's theory of linear forms. For example, one work which he did with the Surya and Tiedemann on Grimm's conjecture, that whatever they did in 1974, which from all accounts I would say is probably a very weak result in that particular direction, has not been improved in the last 30 years.
Okay.
Therefore, it's not that they proved something very strong and it's difficult to improve, etc. But I do not think they proved anything strong. But whatever they proved, that still remains the best in the last 30 years. And afterwards, he moved away from the Baker's theory and then did something on the Ross theorem type thing, essentially trying to approximate algebraic numbers over the numbers from rational numbers in algebraic number fields type thing. Therefore, extension to algebraic number fields. And then he did some sieve methods also. But in 1972, is more or less he decided that his real interest lies in the Riemann zeta function. And then when I joined, he said, okay, let us work on Riemann zeta function. I said, fine. And from that day onwards, I do not think he worked on any other area at all. Zeta function is the one to which he really stuck to.
So how much older roughly to you was he, roughly in age?
Should be around 20 years.
Okay. And he had also a pretty interesting life. No, he was, you've told me sometimes that he worked for a cloth shop.
Yes, exactly. Because I think he lost his father somewhat early in his life.
Okay.
And therefore, after finishing his studies, he has to bear the expenses of the house. And therefore, for a year or so, then he was doing odd works. Okay. But even at that time, he told me that he used to go to the Ramanujam Institute and go to the library and read books.
In Chennai.
In Chennai. So he was working in Chennai?
No, he was working in Bangalore.
Uh-huh.
But even then, sometimes he will go there and study and then learn to prime number theorem, for example, all by himself. I think his interview was also like that. Probably Casey was in the interview committee, and then Casey asked Ramachandra what he knew, and he said, I know prime number theorem, and Casey was impressed. And he said,
K. Chandrasekhar, the founder of the school of mathematics.
Founder, he was probably the second HOD, no?
I know. Whatever I know, a little bit of the history of it, Chandrasekharan was asked by
Baba to
found
take
this
over.
one. I mean,
Before that, what is this person? Yeah.
Kosambi, I think.
Kosambi.
Kosambi
Exactly.
was also there, but I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
So, well, that's it's interesting to know. So,
Yeah, but that I have to check the history. I'm not very sure. I thought Kosambi was then followed by Chandrasekharan.
okay. So, from what you just said, so Carl Ludwig Siegel,
Yes.
the great German mathematician of the time,
Yes.
was in a way Ramachandra's advisor.
In a way, Ramachandra's advisor. That is right.
And you are a grand student of Siegel's.
In that sense, even though Ramachandra was officially a student of Professor K. Raghunathan.
Okay. But the question which Ramachandra first attacked was given to him by Siegel.
Basically.
That's very interesting to know. So, but by 70, so that was very much in algebraic number theory, but
and then moved completely to analytic number theory.
via transcendence.
Via transcendence, yes, transcendence also he did. I mean, at that particular time, of course, he had a brilliant student by name Professor Surya, and therefore, since he was working on the Becker's theory of linear forms, when Professor Surya joined, which is 2 years before me, and Surya was working on linear forms, and he has made a name for himself in the theory.
So by the time you came to him, Ramachandra was firmly into Riemann zeta function,
Firmly into the Riemann zeta function.
which is something he continued.
He continued till his end. Yeah, he never moved out of that.
I think you have a very long series of papers with him. On
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So how many of that?
Yeah,
20?
No,
Oh,
40 or
40.
40 papers with Ramachandra.
I mean, even after I finished my PhD with him, our collaboration continued. Okay. Even after he moved to Bangalore, after I moved to Chennai, our collaboration continued.
Yes, I remember that he would visit math science, and yeah, immediately after there would be a paper. So that was the sort of thing. So you then started to work with Ramachandra, and this is already in 1973.
Yes.
You began to work with him.
Right, we got it.
And almost by 74, 75, you had a paper with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty spectacular. How did that?
That is not really spectacular.
I see.
That's not real. Okay. The reason being, you see, okay, Ramachandra is very good in one-to-one talk. And he normally would be bubbling with ideas. And this bubbling with ideas, he would be able to explain in a one-to-one talk, but then one should be attuned to his way of speaking.
Which was not easy for most people.
Which is not easy for most people.
No, because following him was not very easy. I mean, you are, by many accounts, one of the very, very few people who could understand him directly.
Exactly. I can even tell you a story about that.
Okay.
And therefore, I learned, but on the other hand, he was not very good in communication either through his written work or in a blackboard talk. And most of my mathematics, which I learned when we used to go for a walk in the seashores of the Tata Institute, between 5 and 6 in the evening, we used to walk, and then we had to, that's where I learned more. That is one place where I learned. The other place where I learned is Ramachandra was always very interested in writing letters to his friend, and he would be very happy in receiving the letters from his friends.
Mathematical friends all over the world.
All over the world, mathematical friends all over the world. And I am somewhat opposite of it, that's a different point. And in Tata Institute, of course, all the mail would come to a mail server, and then it will be distributed department-wise between 11 and 11:30.
This was, we are talking of postal mail in the old
Postal
days.
mail. The mail in the 70s, there's nothing else. And then, of course, then they will be given to the different department. But between this 11 and 11:30, the mail being sorted out and given to the department, Ramachandra cannot wait. And therefore, by 11 o'clock, he will go to that mail room. And from 11 to 11:30, he would be waiting there. And as soon as that opens to receive the letter, about how many letters he has. And since he used to do that, therefore I used to follow him. Therefore, between 11 and 11:30, both of us would be standing before the thing. And that's the time when he, again, what else to do? We will be discussing mathematics. And he will say various ideas. And that is where I learned most of my mathematics. Anyway, coming to your question, he had written a paper on the zero density estimates of Riemann zeta function, and where he had some parameter k floating around, and he took k equal to 4. And then he wanted to extend it to the L functions. And then with this parameter k equal to 4, it didn't work. And therefore, he thought that he will give it as a research problem. And that is more or less, not even a month has passed after I joined him as a student. And one day, therefore, I was sitting in my office and he came to me and gave me this paper, and you have a look at this paper and see what can we do for the L functions. And as I told that since he was not so much of a good communicator, I had to learn my Riemann zeta function essentially from the books. And that's what I was trying to do from the book of Titmarsh. And he was talking about things like L functions and zero density estimates, and I have never heard even that word, because I am just going linearly in the Titmarsh book, and I have finished only the first 2 chapters, and these words did not even come there. So I was wondering what to do. But anyway, then I was working, and then the very next day he came and said that, okay, have you made any progress on a problem which I didn't even understand? I said, I have to say something. Probably instead of the parameter k equal to 4, if you trace k equal to 5, probably one may get something. And he went away. The next day he comes with a manuscript and tells me that if k equal to 5, it works. Then I was happy and he gave, so look at the manuscript. I thought at least for that comment, which anybody could have made, at least I wanted to see whether he acknowledges me at least. And looked at the acknowledgement, and there was not my name at all. Anyway, then I looked at the paper, and then I found I am a co-author. And that was, and then we got the paper.
So that was your first paper?
First paper.
Okay. So that was you had already by 74, no?
Yes.
Roughly. So within a year or so, you had already a paper on zero density estimates and things like this.
Yep, they didn't understand it.
Which you say you didn't understand at that time, and you were only beginning to learn about the theory of the zeta function.
Yes.
Okay. So this was not your PhD thesis, of course.
No,
it took a few years before you formally submitted a thesis.
Yes.
So in TAFR, it was not necessary.
It was not necessary. I mean, they were more interested in your publishing good papers rather than when you are getting your PhD type thing.
So why did you need to get the PhD if it was not a requirement in TAFR?
Everybody was getting PhD. Yeah? PhD. I mean, you have joined there only to get a PhD.
Not that it's not a requirement. It's just that I think
a little
they
later,
were willing to give you.
I mean, they won't say that within 5 years
was it for the purpose of going abroad or?
I may not remember correctly, but I think when I went to Princeton, the salary which I was getting, I mean, depended upon whether you have your PhD already or not having PhD and the various things like that. I mean, having a PhD, I mean, the fact, of course, you have to get a PhD, but the fact that they are not saying that unless you get your PhD within 5 years, your fellowship would be cut or something like that. I mean, those conditions were not there, that's all.
Okay. So you were, before you went to Princeton, which you went in 79.
Yeah, in 81. Yeah.
81, is it? That's the time you spent in Princeton.
Instead of advanced study.
Yeah, so you told us one anecdote about your first paper.
Yes.
Right. But I believe there was another one which came.
That's
day
also
before,
interesting.
so.
At the time, I was also getting a little homesick, and one of my batchmates, who is a Tamilian, said that she has some Tamil novels and probably I can read them so that I won't feel so much homesick. And then on the day, it was a Sunday, Tata Institute, of course, the hostel and the office were just 100 feet. And therefore, normally people do go and work on Sundays also. And on a Sunday, I went there to work on this particular problem. And then she came and gave me a few books. And once I saw the novels, then I was tempted to read them. And there was the Ponniyin Selvan, and then I started reading the Ponniyin Selvan.
Ponniyin Selvan is this famous.
The Ponniyin Selvan is the one where there was a famous movie in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Yes. And that Ponniyin Selvan I have read before even, but it's always interesting book to read a second time. And Ramachandra also would do the same thing. On Sundays, he would come and work in the office. And therefore, he came and then wanted to see what I am doing regarding the problem. Then he entered, and I was happily reading Ponniyin Selvan. And he was shocked for a minute. He said, "What are you doing?" And then I thought, of course, probably he is not so happy in my reading a novel in the so-called office hours without doing mathematics. But I said that, okay, this is a Tamil novel, Ponniyin Selvan. Oh, Ponniyin Selvan. I thought it was a Bourbaki. Okay, doesn't matter. Then you continue reading that, and that problem I will try to work out. That's what he said.
So he let you read Ponniyin Selvan and he would work out the problem as long as you're not reading Bourbaki.
As long as I am not reading Bourbaki.
So he was not much of a Bourbaki fan.
He was not much of a Bourbaki.
The books.
Yes.
Books at least.
Yes.
Okay. His tastes were somewhat different.
Somewhat more concrete.
Okay.
I mean, not so much abstract.
Right. So this was when you were writing, or when the way you've said it, when your first paper was written.
Yes.
Which you say was just a remark you made to Ramachandra.
Sure.
And he had the basic idea already
How to do that.
there. Yeah, but of course, I'm sure that remark made the difference. And yeah, so that was your first paper. Subsequently, you have told me this story in the past about, your mailroom conversations and so on.
Exactly.
Which was the background
paper.
to your other paper.
The second paper.
Which is been of interest lately,
Yes.
after several years.
Yes.
Because you wrote it in about 76 or so.
Exactly.
And that paper deals with using sieves
Exactly.
into the traditional arguments
classical argument of zero. Okay.
for zero-free regions.
Okay. What happened was, after that paper, I read the Riemann zeta function and could not think of any good problem type thing. And then I was going to the library, looking at the journals, etc., trying to equip myself with more knowledge so that I would be able to attack the problems. And therefore, I did read a lot of things. And then what happened? Well, again, one of that mail rooms discussion, Ramachandra told me that Ingham observed that an identity of Ramanujan would give the fact that the line sigma equal to 1 is zero free.
For the Riemann zeta.
For the Riemann zeta function.
Which is, of course, a very fundamental result in...
Yeah, this is, of course, fundamental result for proving prime number theorem. And Ingham more or less remarks that this identity probably would not give any zero free regions. And Ramachandra definitely thought that remark probably is not correct, and one should be able to extract a zero free region out of this identity of Ramanujan. And he had a very good ideas on that, and except one lemma, which is somewhat a trivial lemma, he got stuck. And then he explained whatever he has done in the whole paper, again, without paper and a pencil, without a blackboard, just orally, what he has done. And then after that, he got his mail and he got a couple of letters from his friends and he was very happy. And then we went back to the room. On the way, it looked to me that that particular lemma probably can be proved using Brun-Titmarsh theorem. Therefore, we went to the third floor, to his office, and told him that probably it could be done by Brun-Titmarsh theorem, and we worked it out, and it did come. And that is a paper where we were able to prove even a zero-free region without using the standard 3 plus 4 theta plus cos 2 theta, by just using an identity of Ramanujan, which, of course, for a long time had no citation at all. But then recently, now it has seems to have picked up well.
Yeah. In the context of automorphic forms.
In the context of automorphic forms, yes.
Yeah, zero-free regions for automorphic L function.
Yes.
For automorphic L function. So that is, the method has been revived, so to speak, and generalized.
Generalized.
I believe partly by Peter Sarnak in 2004 has an article.
Exactly.
And that seems to have led to further development.
Further development. The recent article being
By Farrell, Brumley and
Peter Humphreys, and there's another article by Humphreys.
That's nice, because that's a very nice elementary sort of idea from today's perspective.
So combining the theta function theory to, combining the sieve methods to the theta function theory.
So this identity of Ramanujan.
Yes.
So your paper was aptly titled "The Place of an Identity of Ramanujan." Is that the correct?
Yes, exactly. The place of an identity of Ramanujan.
So this was a paper that you wrote in.
And in fact, I should say something again interesting in this happened, because even though we wrote it as a joint paper, but then Ramachandra had one separate section in the paper, explaining these Brun-Titmarsh things, and which he calls that a rem of Balasubramanian.
Yeah,
I know. Whatever the co-authors have done, Ramachandra is always on the habit of giving more credit to his co-authors than taking it. And therefore, it is a joint paper where the one particular section is only due to me. That's so generous of him.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about generosity, there are more and more cases which I can talk.
Very kind person.
Very kind person
especially to his students.
Towards any of his co-authors, much more so if the co-author is younger, much more so if the co-author is also his student.
So this was a paper in 76. You already had, probably you had more than 2 papers by that time.
Yeah, I don't know that my thesis paper also came somewhere around 1976.
Yeah. Yes. So can you tell us about your thesis paper?
Okay. Incidentally, someday Ramachandra mentioned that after you finish your thesis, this is exactly what he said, after you finish your thesis and you have learnt enough, then there are at least 2 problems which I really wanted to work where I have not made progress. And one is the improvement of the mean square estimate of the Riemann zeta function, and the other is the difference between the consecutive zeros on the critical line. These 2 problems you have in mind, and this is what I have to do. Okay, I had it. And then I didn't have a thesis problem at that time. Since I didn't have a thesis problem, I thought, why not to work on that? And then I worked on the first problem for a couple of months. Not much progress. Therefore, I thought it's not a good idea. And then worked on the second problem for a couple of months. With no progress. And then went back to the first problem again and looked at it for 2 months. There was no progress. And I decided that to leave the whole thing and then probably take I said, okay, tomorrow is the last day, I'm going to work on this problem. If it doesn't work, then probably I will move to. But the very next day, I got some idea of this first problem. And then I worked it out and finished it. And while writing that paper, something struck me that this is exactly the idea which I needed for the second problem also. And therefore once I have an idea, I use the same idea for the second problem. And therefore my thesis actually consisting of these two problems essentially based on the same idea which I called multiple averaging.
So this multiple averaging is a device that you discovered for handling these two problems.
Both
I mean,
problems.
that's the technical bit,
bit.
the real, the point where you could push
Yes.
ahead of what was known.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because one was an improvement of a result of Titmarsh from I think 1940s or so, and the other was an improvement of a result of Hardy from 1914. I mean, the problems remained for a long time.
So this multiple averaging is something that you have, of course, used. And Ramachandra was also, once you discovered this thing, I think he was very happy.
Yes, he was very happy, and then we really used it later for really getting a lower bound for the L2 mean of the Dirichlet series, and then this L2 mean even over short intervals, and that L2 mean over short intervals we essentially used to get omega results for the arithmetic functions, and in fact for a long time our method of getting an omega result for this using this L2 means was essentially the only method for getting the omega result for the summatory function of arithmetic functions, which was used by many people. And but then probably around 90s or so, 1995 or something like that, Soundararajan came with his resonance method, which actually gives a little better results in some cases at least compared to our method.
So, but this device of multiple integration is a pretty simple thing.
Simple thing, yes.
And so, would you like to explain this multiple integration method, which has been key to your thesis problem?
Okay. You see, if you sort of have an integral like that, for example, and the summation over m in certain range, then this will probably give you summation over m1 in that range, summation over m2 in that range, and then you will have an am1, am2 bar, and m over n power it dt. And in most of the cases, essentially you would expect the main contribution mainly coming from the diagonal terms.
I guess you need an integral sign in front of the summation.
dt.
No, there's an integral all over.
Oh, that's an integral here. Okay, do you expect the main contribution comes from the diagonal term?
What are diagonal terms?
Diagonal terms corresponding to m equal to n.
Or m1 equals m2.
m1 equal to m2. And maybe when m1 and m2 are small,
difference,
yeah, the difference is small, but otherwise you would not expect. This is what you would practically expect. But then in a given problem, to prove that they do not contribute much is not so easy. And that's exactly what I needed to prove that it does not contribute much. And this multiple averaging is essentially a technique which says that the contribution comes only from here and here, and the contribution from the very much the terms which are very much away from the diagonals do not really contribute much. This is more or less the van der Waals lemma of the difference, which essentially says the same thing, that the small differences only would contribute. This I need for both my results in my thesis, and then it was used essentially by Ramachandra, and to really get a lower bound for a Dirichlet series like that. And if you have a Dirichlet series which is f of s is equal to sigma a n by n power s, then he was able to get this is n equal to 1 to infinity, and this is up to a certain stage, and then there is a t. That is, not only there will be a t, but also there will be a sigma mod a n square. And the way essentially he did it is essentially he took it as n less than or equal to t and n bigger than t, called AT and BT. And then when you look at this mod f of it whole square, then this is essentially give you a mod at square plus ait square is better. Mod bit square plus 2 times the real part of ait bit bar. And again, this is where you would expect the contribution to come, and this one you do not expect the contribution to come. But now you see somehow something happens. The summation here is less than or equal to t, and the summation here is bigger than t, which means that your m1 and m2 are really far apart. And therefore, the multiple averaging should be able to tell you that this does not contribute anything. And then already you have got your result. And that's exactly what it does.